The Reverend Dr. David Clark.
Chair, my colleague was discussing the offshore persons aspects of this bill, and I myself was not on the select committee, so I'll preface my comments with that. But I have identified, particularly in the notes around the bill, and I will search further for further contributions into the actual clauses in the bill, the issues around anti-money laundering identification in respect of offshore persons, because there is a recommendation that comes back with this bill for amendments that will make gathering a bank account and understanding the bank account less onerous for those who are offshore persons. And this, I think, is worrying in light of the events of recent days. And I invite members of the committee also to contribute because, as Mr Nash just noted, we may have looked at this, or members of the committee may have looked at it in a different light in respect of blind trusts and other things, had the events of the Panama Papers and so on that have become public fodder in recent days been in front of the committee at that stage. And I note in the notes, the commentary to the bill, it says that officials have undertaken to continue to work on solutions, whether legislative or operational, for some of the practical difficulties and unintended consequences. And it says that in a paragraph that speaks specifically to anti-money laundering identity verification. They are wanting to maintain the integrity of the system, to make sure that the people who are operating here are vetted, and to ensure that they are not involved in money laundering, but they are wanting to do that without placing too much burden on those people. And where that balance falls is a legitimate question to be asking in tax law. And I think what we've seen in recent days is that that burden may not be in the right place. So I encourage those officials to look into that, and I look forward to this debate as it continues, as it begins to open up those questions of whether the balance is struck right in this part of the bill. The anti-money laundering verification undertaken by a New Zealand entity, if somebody is exempt, I read, if they already have this verification. So if they've achieved that verification once, it seems they are exempt in this bill from having to achieve it again to avoid duplication of process. Now, where are the checks and balances? Is that a once and for all thing? If somebody has been certified as being free of any kind of wrongdoing in respect of anti-money laundering in one investigation, are they freed forevermore? I wonder whether Mr Foss might be able to shed some light on that as the person representing the bill in the House, as the Minister in the chair, because these are questions I think that now demand answers. We have in this country a reputation as a fair dealer when it comes to tax, historically. That is true. But what we've seen over the years and during the time of this government is the gap between rich and poor growing. We have tax changes that meant the top 10% of benefits of those changes in 2010 went to the top 40% of the benefits went to the top 10% of earners, and the bottom earners got a few percent, which was swallowed up in a GST change. We've got a tax system that has become less fair over time, and people are concerned. The public that I have spoken to in recent days have questioned me on whether our tax system really is fair anymore. And here we have, in this bill, exemptions for people who have previously been cleared of money laundering allegations, as I read it. So I would appreciate if the Minister and the Chair would clarify whether there's a once and for all stamp of approval if people have been through one set of investigations, or whether there are likely to be more investigations, and whether the tests that are in place for money laundering are sufficient in this bill. Because I'm not clear, having read the notes, Mr Chair, and as I say, I do want to go back and inspect the individual clauses and come back to this debate. I may not carry my particular contribution much further at this stage, because I do want to dig in and do a little bit more research, having just stumbled across this particular matter of concern. But what I can say in closing is that I think we need to be assured that we have a fair tax system. I think we are right as Kiwis to be worried when we see non-resident people taking advantage of our growing status as a tax haven and that damage that does to New Zealand's reputation. I think the Panama Papers have cast a whole different light on the tax legislation that we pass through this House, and that it will need to be more closely examined.
Fletcher Tapito.
Thank you, sir. Rise